I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is marketing doesn't have to be scary or terrifying. The bad news is once you realize this, you no longer have an excuse.
You're a voice actor. You're an entrepreneur. You're a VOPRENEUR. Welcome to the Everyday VOPRENEUR podcast, your guide through the business of voiceover.
The Everyday VOPRENEUR podcast is brought to you by the VoiceOver Marketing Playbook. If you've got professional demos, a professional home studio, professional training, and you're still not booking, it's likely due to your marketing. The good news is, we can fix it. The VoiceOver Marketing Playbook is a step-by-step, easy-to-follow marketing course that will give you a clear plan for finding your own leads, building your own client base, and becoming the consistently working voice actor you want to be. The playbook will be available again April 9 through 18th at markscottcoaching.com.
The VOPRENEUR podcast. Hey, it doesn't suck.
Not as funny as Conan. Not as cute as Seth Meyers. Not as smart as Colbert. But he's one of us, and that counts for something. Here's Mark Scott, the original Everyday VOPRENEUR.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Everyday VOPreneur podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm so excited that you're listening, that you're downloading, that you're enjoying the show. Thank you so much for all of your comments, for all of your feedback, and for all of your reviews. Those really do mean a lot to me, and they help other people to find the podcast as well. So wherever you are listening, I would really appreciate it if you would take the time to leave a review, whether that's on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean. Wherever you're listening to the podcast, take a minute to leave a review. Thank you so much for doing that. So this week, we are going to dive into a topic that I am very familiar with. This is what I teach, so I should be. This week, I want to talk to you about marketing. And more specifically, there are 5 tips that I want to give you that are going to make this a little bit easier for you. Now, in earlier episodes, I've had guests come in and join me on the podcast, and that is something that I'm really looking forward to doing. But for this one today, it's just going to be you and me and a little bit of straight talk to help you get better at your marketing. So I do a lot of surveys, and a lot of the teaching and the coaching that I do are based on the data that I collect from those surveys. And when I say that, it immediately sounds a little bit creepy, like I'm Big Brother that is out there watching, but that's not actually how I mean this. All I do is try to figure out what you guys are struggling with and how I can help you overcome those struggles. And so I do surveys to collect some of that data. And when it comes to marketing, it's the same responses every single time in a survey. Hundreds of people that have done these surveys. Marketing is scary. Marketing is terrifying. Marketing is overwhelming. Marketing is confusing. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I have absolutely no idea where to start. I don't want to market myself because I'm afraid that I'm going to annoy people. I don't want to market myself because I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. Do you feel that way? Chances are you feel that way. Chances are you identify with at least a few of those things, if not all of those things. Maybe you're one of the people that has actually said one of those things, whether it's in one of the surveys or maybe that's just a narrative that you fed yourself while you're trying to figure out how to do this whole marketing thing. So there's a shift that has taken place in our industry. I can't really put an exact date or time on it, but what I can say is that when I first started really pursuing voiceover on a serious part-time basis, I want to say that was the glory days of casting sites, and maybe that's not totally an accurate representation, but the fact of the matter is, at that point, the only way that I was finding voiceover work was through casting sites, and I was making, quasi-decent money doing it as somebody who was doing it on a part-time and almost hobby-like basis for a while. By the time that I made the decision to go full-time, I felt like we had sort of got on the other side of the glory days of casting sites. Things had started to happen with some of the sites, and it wasn't exclusively on the casting sites either. As the barriers to entry to voiceover dropped, more and more people got into it, and whether or not they were qualified, that's a whole other podcast for a whole other day. So now you've got a couple of different factors. There's a lot of different casting sites. There's a saturated marketplace with voice actors, both professional and otherwise, and I noticed that it was getting harder and harder to book consistently off of these sites. And part of that was because there were so many people that were out there that were trying to do it. And part of it was that there just wasn't as many good jobs anymore because they were getting divided amongst all of the other sites that were out there. And so I had this aha moment. I want to say it was around 2013, give or take, where I realized that if I was going to build something sustainable for the long term, I was going to have to look beyond the traditional casting site model. And that is when I realized that I was going to have to figure out how to market my services directly. Now, for me, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. There's always been an entrepreneurial side to me. And so that decision just seemed like a natural progression in my business. But what I've learned is that for the vast majority of voice actors who are creatives first and don't really get the business side the same way as I do, that is a big struggle. And so a lot of voice actors are still sitting out there thinking and wanting to be able to just sign up for casting sites and collect some agents and book some voiceover work. And that's all they want to do. They don't want to have to deal with all of this business and marketing side of things. But because of the shift that has taken place in the industry, the reality is if you are going to do this successfully and you are going to build something that is sustainable, something that is going to grow with you for the long term, you are going to have to learn how to do marketing. One of the things that I have said in the past is that you have to be a full-time marketer first. And then when you've done a good job as a full-time marketer, that's when you get promoted to be a full-time voice actor. So you don't just get to start out being a full-time voice actor, or at least the vast majority of people don't just get to start out being a full-time voice actor. First, you got to start out being a full-time marketer. You have to learn how to do it well, and you have to get yourself in front of as many people as you possibly can every single day in order to build something for the long term. And if the questions that you are asking yourself is questions like, how many people do I need to reach a day, or how many people should I reach a day, I immediately hear, what is the minimum that I can do in order to make this succeed? And that's the wrong approach. You got to be a full-time marketer. So let me give you a few tips. There's a few things that I want to talk to you about today that are going to helpfully shift your mindset a little bit. First and foremost, you got to stop making excuses for yourself. The reality is that when we don't want to do something hard, what do? We follow the path of least resistance. So what does that look like in our voiceover business? It means that we end up devoting our time and effort to things that are usually simple, but often meaningless, busy work. So we get to feel like we're working really hard on our business because we're doing all kinds of stuff. It's just that all of that stuff that we're doing isn't actually going to produce results that are going to help us. So you got to stop that. You got to stop that. You got to stop making excuses, and you have to dig in. And I think one of the reasons why we don't want to do it is going back to what came out earlier in the podcast, because we think that this whole marketing thing is scary and hard and intimidating and overwhelming and so confusing and all of that sort of stuff. And so the more that we feed ourselves that narrative, the less likely that we are to want to dive in and do the marketing. And so, like I said, you get caught doing all of the meaningless, busy work. That stuff is not going to move your business forward. There's a time and place for some of those little menial tasks, but the vast majority of your day, if you are planning to do this full time, when you are not in the studio recording, you need to be marketing. That's the reality. And as long as you continue to make excuses that prevent you from doing that, you are going to continue to struggle in your business. You are not going to see the results that you want to see. You can't just sit back and rely on casting sites and agents and SEO and wait for all of the work to come to you. It doesn't work that way anymore. You've got to get out there and actively put yourself in front of as many buyers as you possibly can every single day. And the more buyers that you get yourself in front of, the sooner you are going to build something that will grow. When I was first starting out full-time, there were weeks when I was contacting as many as 200 new people in a week, because this was literally all I did. From morning to night, I got up, I did lead generation, and I sent out emails, and I got myself in front of as many people as humanly possible on any given day. And so when I hear voice actors saying things like, oh, I contacted 5 new leads this week, that's great. Good for you for getting those 5 new leads. But mathematically, You're not going to be able to sustain yourself at a full-time basis contacting 5 new leads a week until sometime around 2,386. And so if you're looking to do this full-time, you're going to have to ramp up those numbers. This needs to be your full-time job. Marketing needs to be your full-time job. And it's really easy for me to say that. You're probably thinking, oh, right, Mark, you're a marketing coach. Of course you're going to tell us that. Well, I think if you talk to a lot of professional working voice actors, they're going to tell you the same thing. Yes, you have to have your demos. Yes, you have to have your performance ability. Yes, you have to have your studio. But once all of those things in place, your responsibility now becomes to your business and getting that business in front of as many buyers as possible. Which leads us to the second thing that I want to touch on, and I addressed this very briefly in one of the previous podcasts. A lot of people don't want to market because they're afraid that by marketing, they're going to annoy people. And this is a really, really powerful, impactful, and harmful narrative that you are going to have to change. That is a story that you are telling yourself. I don't know where that story came from. You're not the only one telling yourself that story. Everybody shares this story of, if by marketing, I'm going to annoy people. Let me give you a little fact. In all the years that I've been doing this, in the literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of emails that I have sent, cold emails. Cold emails are emails to people that I have no prior relationship with. In all of those many thousands of emails, I could count on one hand with fingers left over how many times I have got an angry response back from somebody who felt like I was annoying them by sending them a marketing email. And in each one of those instances, when I very promptly apologized for interfering with their day and let them know that I would no longer communicate with them, and I, again, apologized for any inconvenience, several of them wrote back to apologize to me because the reality was they were having a bad day and I just happened to be the guy that got dumped on, and one of them actually ended up adding me to their roster. So this whole narrative that we're going to annoy people, it's a false narrative. And I don't know where it comes from, but we have to get over it because it's just not the reality. The more that we tell ourselves that, though, the less inclined we are going to be to do our marketing. So what I want you to do instead is when you wake up in the morning, you go downstairs into the booth, or you go upstairs into the booth, or you go across the hallway into the booth, or wherever your booth is, I want you to remind yourself that you offer something of value. I want you to remind yourself that you are a professional, that you have a skill set that most other people don't have, that you provide a service that brings great benefit to everyone who uses it. Think of all the things that you have given your voice to. If I look back at all of the products that I have promoted, all of the services that I have promoted, all the brands that I have promoted, to all of the stories that I have told, hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of voiceovers over the years, none of those stories would have been told if I didn't give my voice to them. I provide a very valuable service, and you need to start filling your head with that narrative. Because if you are not confident when you approach your marketing, and this could be whether it's email, social media, cold calls, in person, whatever, if you are not confident, that is going to come through. That lack of confidence and that fear that you're annoying people, that is going to come through in the copy that you write on your website and the copy that you write in your emails. That is going to come through in the delivery in your auditions. That is going to come through in your cold calls. It's going to come through in the way that you present yourself in social media. And so you need to come at this from a place of confidence. How do you come at it from a place of confidence? By doing your performance coaching before you start marketing yourself. By making sure that you are bookable. Before you ever start marketing, you need to make sure that you are bookable. Once you are bookable, and you know you are bookable, you should have no reason to not be completely confident in yourself, in your ability, and in the service that you are offering. And so when you flip that narrative around from, I'm afraid that I'm going to annoy people, to, I offer something of incredible value, and I provide benefit to every one of my clients, that's the difference maker. You've got to change that narrative. The words that we say, the stories that we tell, the thoughts that we think have such a profound impact on us and how we approach our business. Make sure that you are filling yourself with the right narrative. Number 3, the information is out there. It is readily available if you are willing to dig in and learn it. At the time that I was getting started, there wasn't anybody really teaching marketing for VoiceOver. Or at least if there was, I hadn't found them. And so because of my nature, because of the way that I am, being very inquisitive, and I have this drive. When I set my mind to something, I have a drive that I have to figure it out. And I don't quit until I figure it out. And so that meant that I started reading all kinds of books on entrepreneurship, on marketing, on sales, on negotiation, on mindset, and all of those different types of subjects. I took post-secondary courses in entrepreneurship. So I went to the local community college, took online courses in entrepreneurship. I have attended conferences that teach sales and marketing because I needed to learn it. I listened to podcasts. I don't listen to a lot of VoiceOver podcasts. I listen to a lot of sales and marketing podcasts, entrepreneurship podcasts, podcasts that are going to help me to grow my business. And so over time, I collected all of this information. A lot of that information while I was learning is what became my blog. And so for years, as I was learning these lessons, I was blogging these lessons, and that was twofold. First of all, it was because I wanted to share what I was learning. And second of all, as I shared that information, it was driving it into me. It was repetition. It was creating that memory muscle so that I would remember all of these different marketing lessons that I was learning so that I would know what I needed to do. I never set out to become a coach. It never occurred to me that that would happen. That just ended up being the natural evolution as I gathered all of this information together. And so I want you to know 2 things. First of all, the information is all out there and it is readily available. And when you arm yourself with that information, it removes a lot of the fear and anxiety that comes with marketing. Because when you understand what you have to do now, it's not so scary anymore. Now you don't have the same kind of excuses that you have when you don't know what you have to do. But there are 2 ways that you're going to be able to get that information. There is countless hours of free information that is available for you to consume on the internet. And that is going to come in the form of YouTube videos. It's going to come in the form of blogs, of podcasts, of social media. I go on every week and do my free advice Friday, and I dispense advice. I make videos from time to time for YouTube. I do the podcast every week, and always am trying to give out advice. And so all of that information is out there, and you can consume a lot of that information. You do have to be selective. Not everybody is giving good information. And you also have to recognize that there comes a point where you collect too much information. When you have too much of it, you get overwhelmed and you're not sure what your next steps are. But all of that information is out there and readily available for you, and you can do it for free, and it is going to be incredibly time-consuming. I was a student of marketing for many, many, many years before I was ever in a position to start teaching marketing. One of the reasons why I'm able to teach marketing and why I'm able to sell courses and why I'm able to sell hourly coaching is because now I've gone out and invested 5 or 6 years of my life into learning all of this, and I can condense it down into the most important stuff that you need to know. So I'm taking out the learning curve. So rather than you having to spend the next 4 or 5 years figuring all of this stuff out there with all the information that you can collect from the internet and from courses and from podcasts and all of that sort of stuff, I'm able to give it to you in a much more condensed format. My VoiceOver marketing playbook is 5 hours. There are people out there that offer courses that say hundreds of hours of content. Who the crap has time to sit down and watch hundreds of hours of content? I want to give you everything that you need to know and forget about everything that you don't need to know because it is irrelevant. I would rather give you less because less in this case is more. I give you the essentials. These are the things that you need to know. This is how it has to be done. This is the way to do it to make it work. And then just leave out all of the rest. So the information is out there. You just have to choose how you are going to consume it. You can consume it for free, and you can try to take it all in as much as you possibly can, hopefully getting all of the good information. And I will always do my best to provide quality information on my part. I can't speak to all of the other coaches, but through my Free Advice Friday, my videos, my podcast, whatever, I'm always going to try to give you quality information for free. But you have to understand that that premium information is designed to help you skip the line. In essence, that's what it is, right? Instead of you spending 4 or 5 years, take a course or book an hour of coaching and get it done now. And that's why performance coaches are able to do what they're able to do. That's why tech support, somebody like Uncle Roy, you could spend the next 40 hours watching free YouTube videos trying to figure out how to use Adobe Audition, or you could book a 2-hour session with Uncle Roy and have him set it up for you and then gain back 38 hours of your life, which you can now devote towards your voiceover business. The information is out there. You just have to know how to look for it, and you have to decide how you're going to consume it. Number 4 on the list, you got to create systems and processes to make this easier. One of the smartest investments that I ever made for my marketing efforts was a CRM system. A couple of years ago, I didn't even know what CRM was. And so I had a system, and I say that with air quotes, that included spreadsheets, Evernote to keep track of notes and stuff like that, a calendar app, a task list app, trying to keep everything sorted and organized in some form or fashion in my email inbox, and then about 10 other different systems and processes that all tied together. And I was failing. The larger that my database got, the harder it became for me to keep track of all of that stuff. And that is when I discovered CRM. CRM was one of the smartest investments that I ever made. I only wish that I had discovered it and made that investment several years sooner. The sooner that you can start with a CRM, the better. The problem that I ran into was by the time I was starting with the CRM, I literally had thousands upon thousands of names in my database, and I had to try to get the database set up. And it probably took me about 6 months of working a couple hours every day just to get my database set up the way that I wanted it set up, which was a pain in the butt. And so that's why I say the sooner that you can start with CRM, the better, because you can start creating that database that you want, the way you want, right from the very beginning. It is going to make your life so much easier. But systems like that are going to help take some of the burden off you for your marketing. CRM, for those of you that aren't familiar, is customer relationship management software. I do offer a free webinar that is titled, What is CRM and Why Do I Need It? I will link that webinar in the show notes if you want to sign up and you want to watch that webinar. It just kind of gives you about a 45-minute overview of all of the different things that one simple CRM solution can do for you. But by getting my database put into a CRM and now having a system of accountability for doing follow-up, for keeping track of clients, for keeping track of prospects, for keeping track of auditions and jobs that I was working on, even things that may seem simple like keeping track of rates conversations that I was having with different clients and different quotes that I was putting out there. It brought all of that stuff into one centralized location where I could sign in and I could see my appointments in my calendar. I could see the task that I had to accomplish on a given day or look ahead to the task that I had to accomplish in a given week. I could set reminders for myself for, next week or a month or 6 years from now or whatever. When a client comes to me and says, look, I don't have anything for you right now, but I need you to follow up with me in July. Now I can put a note in my CRM to follow up with that person in July and reference back to that conversation that we had. So creating that system for marketing made my life so much easier. So a CRM system is one of the essential tools that I think that you need to invest in. The other thing I think that you need to create systems for is social media. Now, if you're only going to use one social network, it's not as big of a deal. But if you are going to be working across multiple social networks, having a system in place that helps you to create that content, to format that content, and ultimately to schedule that content to go out is going to come a long way in saving you time and making your efforts much more productive. And I have used different systems to do those types of things as well. But finding ways to make it easier for you is going to make it more enjoyable for you to do. It all goes back to what I said a few minutes ago, where we don't want to do hard things. And so we try to take the path of least resistance, and that's when we end up doing things that we shouldn't be doing instead of the things that we should be doing. So if you can put systems and processes in place that are going to make marketing easier for you in the long run, then it is going to remove some of that resistance to doing the marketing. And I do think it starts with a CRM. Again, check the show notes for the webinar. It's called What is CRM and Why Do I Need It? You can sign up. You can watch that. It is a free webinar that will teach you all about CRM, because I could literally do a whole other podcast just on the topic of CRM. That brings me to number 5 on my list. And this might be the most important one. Finding your why. Why did you get into this in the first place? Why is it that you decided that you wanted to be a voice actor? Why is it that you decided that you wanted to take this VOPRENEUR journey in starting a small business, in going into business for yourself? What prompted you to make that decision? What is it that you're working towards is one of the things that you need to think about. Finding your why. And so for me, my overarching why was freedom and flexibility. It was all about creating a life that was on my terms. After having worked in corporate world for so many years through radio broadcasts and television broadcasts, and always having to answer somebody else, and always having somebody else dictating my time and my schedule and my tasks and the things that I could and couldn't do and could and couldn't say, and I was just really wanting to get into a position where, well, when I left my last radio job, when I got downsized, I said, from now on, the only idiot I answer to is me. I wanted to be able to have complete control over my schedule and over my life. I get to decide how many hours I work. I get to decide how much money I'm going to try to earn. I get to make the rules. And that was a big part of my why. But then I break it down a little bit further than that. And this comes back to goal setting. And I look at, what do I want to accomplish this year? What are the things that I want to be able to do this year? And those could be things on a personal level. They could be things on a business level. For me, some of the things that I'm working towards this year, there are some trips that I'm looking forward to taking with my wife and with my family. And so that becomes part of my why. There are some upgrades that I want to make in my studio. And so that becomes part of my why. There are some upgrades to our backyard space that we want to make so that it's more comfortable when we have family get-togethers and invite friends over and, have backyard barbecues and all that sort of stuff. And so that becomes part of my why. So these are all things that I'm working towards. So rather than going down into the studio and thinking, oh, here we go, I got to do some more marketing today, I'm going into the studio and thinking, what do I have to do to get me closer to that vacation? What do I have to do to get me closer to that new iMac? What do I have to do to get me closer to that new barbecue pit that I want to put in my backyard? And so that becomes my driving motivator. I'm not thinking about doing the marketing. I'm just thinking about, I'm going to do whatever I got to do to pay for that vacation. I'm going to do whatever I got to do to be able to fund that backyard barbecue. I'm going to do what I need to do in order to get that new iMac in my studio. And so now it becomes something fun. In e-learning, they call it gamification, right? It's creating ways of learning that make the learning fun. So it doesn't just feel like you're sitting in a classroom. Well, this is kind of like gamifying your marketing. So it's not now just about how many leads do I have to contact, and I don't really want to send these emails, and marketing is not something that I enjoy, and it's so difficult. It doesn't become about that. It becomes about, I can't wait to go on this trip to the East Coast with my family, and I'm so excited to get there and to have that experience and to create those memories and to have that fun. And that's what gets my butt into the studio. So when I'm sitting down to get doing my marketing, I'm not thinking about my marketing. I'm thinking about that vacation. I'm thinking about that barbecue pit. I'm thinking about that new iMac. And so one of the things that I think is most important is for you to identify your why. Why are you doing this in the first place? Because when you have a why that you can get passionate about, that is what is going to make you do the things that maybe you don't necessarily want to do or don't enjoy doing, but you know you have to do in order to get there. You've got to find your why. If you are one of those people that says that marketing is scary, that marketing is terrifying, that marketing is overwhelming, that marketing is confusing, that you have no idea what you're doing, if you're one of those people that's completely frustrated with everything that is going on with the pay-to-play world right now and all of the nonsense that's happening, VDC is just not a good company to work with, and 123 has totally screwed up their launch, and we're waiting for them to get that all sorted out. And if you're dealing with all of that frustration, you need to devote your efforts to doing your own marketing. If your business is not where you want it to be right now, it's probably because you need to work on your marketing. If you have your demos, if you have your studio, and if you've done your performance training, so you are bookable, you are ready to start working right now, today. But if you don't have enough work, I'd be willing to bet money that it is due to your marketing. And the good news is that I can help you fix that. The VoiceOver Marketing Playbook is coming out very soon, April 9th through 18th, 2019. It is a step-by-step, easy-to-follow video marketing course that is going to give you a clear plan for finding your own leads, building your own client base, and for becoming the consistently working voice actor that you want to be. 5 videos, a little over 5 hours worth of content, only the important stuff that you need to know. I'm going to teach you all of the fundamental principles of marketing and then how those specifically apply to your voiceover business. I'm going to teach you specific strategies for using social media for lead generation and for marketing efforts. I'm going to teach you specific strategies for email marketing and for building those client bases and how that system all works. And then I'm going to be there to support you on an ongoing basis through email support, through a private Facebook community, through Q&A sessions that we do as a group, through private coaching if you sign up for the Playbook Complete. But if you are afraid of marketing, if you don't have the confidence level to get you to where you need to be, the Playbook can get you there. I will help get you there. I will give you that confidence so that you can build the voiceover business that you want to be working in. Once again, Playbook coming up here very soon from April 9th through 18th. I only release the Playbook a couple of times a year, and the reason for that is simple. I have a lot of personal involvement with the course, and so I need to make sure that I am leaving a window of time to work with all of the different people who sign up for it. So when I opened up the course in January, I'm just now finishing up a lot of the coaching sessions and different things like that so that I'm ready for this April launch. And with this April launch, again, from the 9th through the 18th, this is going to be your last opportunity to get into Playbook until September. And September will be the last opportunity for you to get in 2019. If you want to work on your marketing, I can help you do it. We'll do it together through Playbook. All of the details are going to be available at voiceovermarketingplaybook.com. So again, April 9th through 18th, details coming out at voiceovermarketingplaybook.com when the course releases on April 9th. Very quickly, let's recap what we talked about. First and foremost, you got to stop making excuses and dig into your marketing. You know it's what you have to do to grow your business. You've probably already figured out that you can't just sit back and rely on casting sites and agents exclusively to build your business. So you got to stop with the excuses, dig in and do the work. Second thing is you got to change that narrative in your head. Change that story from marketing is annoying and I don't want to annoy people to I provide something of value. My service brings great benefit to my clients. Just remember that. You are there to tell their story, and you are one of a select group of people who have the ability to do that. There is all kinds of information out there. There is free information and there is premium information. You can consume all of that free information and you can learn a lot of the things that you need to know, but it is going to be very time consuming. And you also have to be very careful about where that information is coming from. Because if you get bad information and you start doing things the wrong way, it's going to be really hard to undo that. But the information is out there. Take a community college course on entrepreneurship. Read a book on entrepreneurship. Listen to a podcast on entrepreneurship. Podcasts like the VOPRENEUR podcast. But don't be afraid of the premium information. Don't be afraid to make that investment that is going to get you where you need to be a whole lot faster. Jump to the front of the line. Skip the learning curve. I always say the Playbook came as a result of me making 10,000 mistakes. Like literally, I spent 2 years doing absolutely everything wrong before I finally started figuring out how to do things right. And when I figured out how to do things right, that is when I created the Playbook of how to do things the right way. So rather than you making all the same mistakes that I already made, the Playbook can help you to skip that learning curve. Make sure that you are creating systems and processes that are going to make this easier for you. And the number one place to start from a marketing standpoint is with a CRM. Again, check the show notes for this podcast to find the free webinar, What is CRM and Why Do I Need It? And that will give you a better understanding of what CRM is and how that can make a huge difference for your voiceover business. And finally, the fifth and most important thing that you need to do, this is like your homework assignment for this podcast episode, is to find your why. Remember why you got into this in the first place and remind yourself constantly what it is that you are working towards. Is it a vacation? Is it a salary replacement, the ability to go full time? Are you trying to save up for a house, for a boat, for a studio upgrade, for your kids' college fund, for a major operation? Whatever it is, identify what your why is and let that become the driving motivator that gets you into the studio every single day. Do those 5 things and marketing is going to be a lot easier for you. Don't forget, Playbook available April 9th through 18th, voiceovermarketingplaybook.com. I would love to have the opportunity to work with you. Again, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode and for leaving your reviews. Leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever you listen to this podcast. And please remember to join the VOpreneur community. I would love to have you active in that Facebook community where we share and we learn and we grow with each other every single day. And you can find the link to that at VOPRENEUR.com. VOPRENEUR.com. Get into that Facebook community. And thank you so much again for listening. I'll catch you on the next one.
The Everyday VOpreneur Podcast. Available everywhere fine podcasts are given away for free. Mostly, we think.
Your number one marketing tool is your VoiceOver demos. When you're posting them online, you want to be sure they're playable on any device and with any browser. The VoiceSam player does exactly that. Sign up at msvo.me/msvoicesam and receive 3 months of VoiceSam for the price of one. Sign up now at msvo.me/msvoicesam.
Hold for tech.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for hanging in. Thanks for hanging out. Want more VOpreneur goodness? Jump online at VOpreneur.com.